So welcome and thank you. Thank you for the invite. I am here with gratitude. So I'm delighted that I am invited to share the story of PwC's journey into a purpose-led and values-driven organization. And why PwC is a big business on a day where we talk about society. Because when Phil and I were talking about this, actually the realization that if you can get it right as a big business, if you can get it right with a single purpose and a single set of shared values, you can actually create a ripple effect around the world that can have a tremendous effect. So what I would like to do today is to talk to you about how we want to create that ripple effect. I am a partner in the Netherlands in advisory, and I've been doing culture work, culture and strategy alignment work with clients for over about 15 years. And then the CEO in the Netherlands asked me if I could help him on the culture journey of PwC Netherlands. So 2 years ago, we embarked on this journey and started working with the Baird Value tools also internally. We've been using the tools for client assignments for a long time. But in terms of practice what you preach, we said, let's apply what we are advising our clients on to our own company. And turned out we had some amazing results. Our staff engagement went up, our client satisfaction went up big time. So the CEO asked me a very important question. And he said, Wendy, what is your purpose? And what is your dream? So I said to him, well, it's actually my dream to make the corporate world a bit more conscious, purpose-led and values-driven. And it would be fantastic if we can start with PwC, not just in the Netherlands, but on a global basis. In terms of figures, the Netherlands is about 5,000 employees. Worldwide, we are 240,000. We operate in 156 countries. So I was thinking, that's quite a big ripple effect. So he said to me, so aim from the moon, you get pretty far, not just halfway, as we saw on the first day. So he said, shall we call our global chairman, Dennis Nelly? And he might want to have a cup of coffee with you. And I kind of went, yeah, sure, call Dennis, see what happens. I'm kind of a person in the Netherlands. So we had a call with him. And we told him the story of what we did in the Netherlands. And I was invited for a cup of coffee in New York. So we stepped on the plane. And pretty excited, going to New York. And had a conversation about how we can truly do this for PwC on a global scale. So that's the start of the story, and I will jump in and out because the last year I've actually been seconded to the global board to help them out on this journey, and we are about to launch our new identity on Monday. Who we are, what we do, and our new values and behaviors that we feel are much more future-proof in terms of where society is developing into. But it's been quite a journey. And being humble and realizing that actually by launching this on Monday, we're only at the start of the journey, although we've already had such a year. So there's still a lot of work to be done, and a little done so far. But I look at this with great positive energy that actually, if I've seen the network develop over this year and the deep conversations that we've had about purpose, individual purpose, aligned purpose in the network, our values, and how we should go about doing this, I have the trust that we will be able to create that ripple effect. So I'll talk to you a bit about the context that we've been doing this in, how we arrived at values, our practical journey going forward and the lessons learned. And in the meantime, I will give you some of my lessons learned in this because, my gosh, transformation starts with yourself, isn't it? And I have been on a journey this year. It's been truly amazing and also quite hard and challenging. And I was saying to some people over the last 3 days, so are you enjoying the conference? And I said, it's so nice to meet some like-minded people. 3 days in a year where you actually feel you're not crazy. So thank you for that. So this is PwC's global version of the VUCA world. We have done a lot of research around where is the world heading and how can we as a firm add value to that. So we've been doing a lot of deep dives into what are the big mega trends that we as a firm with our qualities and our competencies can help solve some of those important problems. And as a large accounting firm, PwC Worldwide, God, we had some challenges because society has spoken up. They're speaking up to lots of big businesses that a big business these days cannot just be there to make money. You have to create value. So we've been on this deep dive in terms of how can we as a firm create value in these big 5 mega trends that are happening around the world. And we've asked many of our clients, CEOs of also large international global corporations, also a lot of public service companies that we serve, a lot of private companies, a lot of family companies. And we've asked these leaders about purpose. And this is what they told us, that yes, purpose is here to stay. If you don't serve some sort or shape of societal value as an organization, you are not going to be here in 5 years from now. So this is not just in our culture work, it's good news for all of us who do this work, because this is a topic that is at the moment at the board table. However, there's also some bad news here. We've also asked them then, for example, how important is it that purpose comes first in your company decisions? Only 21% said it needs to come first. We've asked them, do you need to recruit talent that links into your purpose? Is purpose something that you use in your recruitment? 28% said, we are starting. So our work now moves from, in my belief, from talking about how important it is to talking about how do you actually do this. So the conversation is shifting. I think there's a lot of businesses that are ready to have the conversation, but we now need to continue the journey in actually helping them on the how. And I've been privileged to be in some of the breakouts, and I think the work that we're doing here to actually help them on the how is really, really important. There's a lot of research, and you saw in the movie as well, and this is PwC. We are a large accounting firm, so we employ a lot of professionals in an accounting and economic background. So we've done this journey a lot with backing it up with numbers and figures to show it's to stay. So one of the things we've done is we looked at how successful are organizations that lead from purpose and values compared to organizations that kind of still lead in the performance paradigm. And as you can see, continuously the numbers are there. What we've also found out when we were traveling around in the network, no matter where we were talking to the leadership team in China, in Africa, in the US or in Europe, people have the tendency to polarize. They talk about either profitable business or purpose-driven business. And what we have tried to do is actually create synergy in that dialogue and say the most important or biggest projects that you're working on for your clients. And in that dialogue, what the projects are doing, we actually found out that those projects are already serving a higher purpose. So we're actually getting people to understand that if the two go hand in hand, doing good does not mean not for profit. We are still going to be a profitable business, and we need to be a profitable business to attract the right talent in the world to do what we do. And that's good, and we are proud to be that. But it's how can you actually synthesize and synergize those views on profit and purpose? So with all that context in mind, the mega trends, we are society speaking up to large businesses, PwC, and all of these large accounting firms getting in the news in quite some bad publicity. We actually asked ourselves the question, why are we here? What is our purpose? So we've been on this deep dive with the leadership team to basically reinvent ourselves. If we want to create value in the world, if we want to be here and be relevant, not only now, but 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years from now, what is our core purpose? Where can we add value? And our purpose has landed on building trust in society and solving important problems. As a large accounting firm, we sign off the books of many of the large corporations, many of the public service corporations, many of the private companies. So if we sign off books and they're not correct, we actually diminish trust in society. So we have an important role as an organization to help create trust and stability in the economic systems around the world. So that is to our core. And when you talk to professionals who do this work on a daily basis, this is what they tap into. They understand that this is the energy that inspires them to do their work. There's a lot said about tax systems and ineffective tax systems around the world, and how large corporations sometimes taking advantage of these ineffective tax systems. We have a very big tax consulting, advising business around the world. So we're asking ourselves, with all of these tax professionals, how can we again add value? How can we create trust in tax systems so we add value to stable economies and growth in the world? So that deep dive of purpose was a tremendous process to align our leaders around the world. And you have to understand, PwC is, although it's a global organization, we're not actually an organization. We are a fragmented business of local businesses operated by local CEOs and local teams with local supervisory boards. So all that we share is our brand. And we felt just sharing a brand is not good enough. So we needed something that was more binding, more inspirational, more connecting. Because if we can connect around that same shared purpose around the world, we're actually able to add much more value than we remain to be 156 separate fragmented businesses around the world. And then from purpose, we went to, if our purpose is building trust in society and solving important problems, we then moved to what? Vision 2020. We then moved to our strategic agenda. What are the strategic choices that we need to focus on to be able to manifest that purpose? And now, of course, the real interesting work comes in. If you have a purpose and you know your strategy, then what is the culture that you need to enable that purpose to be manifested and that strategy to be executed? We then realized that the current culture and the values that we currently have, leadership, teamwork, and excellence, are not going to bring us the inspiration and aspiration to deliver on our purpose and to deliver on our strategy. So we got the leadership team together, and as you can see, these are the 21 leaders of the 21 biggest countries in PwC, kind of making up 70% of the whole network. This was in Melbourne. You can see me looking really serious, and you can also see that this crowd is very diverse. It's another thing that we need to work on as a firm. and you can see the butterfly there on the screen as well. And we started to have this dialogue around transformation. So we were working with the Barrett Value Center and actually got the leaders to do a leadership value 360. They were scared to death to do a 360 on this. We got them to do the 360, and we asked them to bring their profiles and have a deep dialogue on their profiles and how their individual values were linked to our purpose and were linked to our strategy, and how they as individual leaders, collective leaders network, were able, their own values, to bring about our purpose and deliver on our strategy. And this is why because we had quite a deep dive to do there. Outcome of this process in Melbourne was that the leadership said yes to, we need to refresh our culture, and even better, said yes to, let's not, as a leadership team, with now understanding our own values, think that we have the answer. Let's co-create our new values, and let's do that in a way that actually asking 240,000 people around the world what their opinion is, what they value, what they feel is important, how they look upon the current culture, and what they wish for the future. What do we need for PwC's potential to flourish? This is the moment when I called Phil. We just came back from Melbourne. So I said, can we do a values assessment? 240,000 people around the world, 156 countries, 27 languages. And as PwC, we've made a decision. We want it to happen yesterday. So this was the 11th of November, and they wanted the survey the 1st of January. So we were kind of counting 6 weeks. So I asked Phil, can we do this in 6 weeks? Time from now. And it was so lovely. He said, can I just say, remember this? Wow! So I asked him, is that a yes? So it was a yes. And I think they've done an incredible job. Can I just have an applause for that? Because what they've done is truly tremendous. And I can remember in this period we were having like daily dialogues on, because PwC is such an intellectual firm. There's so much head energy. So of course, when we were trying to set up a team around the world that was helping us with this, with kind of coaches in every country, when we showed them the template with the 100 values, gosh, people start recreating things. And we have this tendency to recreate something that's already perfect. But things like what I learned personally in this journey, and I remember a phone call with someone in China, did a night for me, and because they had translated empowerment in delegation. So we kept saying, that's not empowerment. And we were running Google Translate with Alan. Remember that conversation? And it's like, it's authorized actually. And then they come up with authorized. We're like, no, it's empowerment. And then, so we were with our own frame of mind, continuously saying, you're wrong and we are right. And then we found out actually in China there's no such word as empowerment. So our frame of mind was tested big time as well. When working with all of these countries, and we had like Russia or Colombia in there, and we had all these differences, but we ended up having a template, yes. We ended up getting alignment on the grade structure, the industries you were working in, the sort of clients, because of course we wanted to do all these analysis. And then we sent out the questionnaire, the results came back, and we were confronted with 875 reports. That was quite a lot to get through. So we got about 25 people in a room, plotted all the reports, and Wenke, where's Wenke? She came in from Belgium, so we had people coming in from different countries to actually help us analyze this data and making sense. And we went through kind of a huge process in a week, making sense of the data. What is the data really telling us? Phil came over and we had such a lovely day. Lucky, actually being on the balcony and looking at these reports and what is the real core of what this is telling us as a firm. I'll get back to that. We also realized that just looking at the data of what our people are telling us is just part of the story, because we're such a big firm, we have such a big responsibility in society in how we create trust in those financial systems, in the economy, in systems around the world. And all the advisory work that we do, for example, in aligning strategies and cultures of those big corporations. So we felt the need to also ask our clients, where do you see our culture needs to evolve into? We've also consolidated the data of our yearly employee questionnaire, and we, as a firm, we are heavily in a regulated business. So we felt the need to also talk to our regulators to ask them, what do you feel our culture needs to be like, look like years from now? So we consolidated all that data and then had dialogues in the countries. And what we were amazed at, when we sent out the questionnaire, the values questionnaire, we had a discussion with the leadership team, and we said, so what are you aiming for? What is your dot on the horizon? 40% engagement? Statistically seen, we would have been good with 10%. But we said, let's not do this as a statistic data exercise, but let's make this a real, true, co-creative, energetic, inspirational exercise. So can we get the leadership teams to do this values exercise as a true intervention in their countries? And these countries were, and of course we did something really smart, because PwC people like to compete. So we gave them a daily leadership dashboard, seeing the response rates per country. We need to tap in the energy that's there, right? So why not use it? And the daily dashboard, and the leaders were sharing examples amongst each other. They, look at what we've done in Mexico. We've done value tables. Look at what we've done here, and in the US, in the office, they had, this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to influence the future. What are your values? So this energy around the world is amazing. And this co-creative process has already brought us so much in understanding what people value, but also bringing to the table the dialogue on how important values are in your daily operations. So yes, a lot of countries, a lot of employees who answered, and in the end we had 58%, almost 60% response, which is really unreal for a network as PwC. So it was funny, because I remember in Melbourne when our chairman, Dennis Nelly, suggested, shall we do this with everyone? The leadership team were kind of going, well, do you think people are going to be excited about values? Well, here's the proof, right? So the results of the survey, and of course, there's I could have shown you 850 reports, but I thought I'd do a summary. First thing that we found is, and this was amazing because we formed a lot of hypotheses with the team together. There were probably lots of cultural differences. Can we actually talk about one PwC around the world? What does diversity do in the network? And actually we found out that there were lots of matches, no matter what country you were in the current culture. How we describe the current culture, we had about 5 to 6 matches around the globe. So we found out, no matter if you are a fragmented business, if you get people around a shared purpose, because that's the work we've been doing the 2 years and a year before, and an aligned strategy, people already start to think the same way about the workplace. And also, they wanted to carry some of those values clearly forward. So we had quite a lot of matches between the current culture and the desired culture, which is what we called being a professional services firm. Quality, like almost number one in the current culture, almost number one in desired culture. Teamwork, if we don't do this together, you cannot do an audit of a multinational by your own. These audits of multinationals are audit teams are 80, 90 people. So we have to work together. If we don't work together, we cannot perform our work. So those are values that were really there. And that quality and structure and performance, excellence, that energy, I recognize it. 2 years ago, my husband and I went on a trip to Peru. And he's quite adventurous when we go on holiday, and he kind of books places that sometimes you think serious. He booked this bus trip into the Colca Canyon. And we arrived in the morning at the bus. And there were more alpacas getting on the bus than humans. So I was kind of like, what are you getting us into? And this is my husband, right? So I love him dearly. And I do trust him. But then we found out, we were in the bus, and I heard this couple talking. So I looked around, and I started chatting with this couple. Turns out the guy works for PwC. So there was instant trust that this was the right trip. So I turned to my husband and said, "Thank you for finding this trip. It's going to be amazing." And he was like, "You trust your colleague more than me?" What's happening? So it's the drive for kind of quality that we found that is something that is deeply rooted in PwC and that we want to carry forward in our desired culture. We also had a lot on quality of work in terms of how we operate together. Long hours came up in Entropy, big time. Bureaucracy came up, big time. Over control. And actually in the desired culture, if you look at what solutions people were giving, 50,000 people put balance on number one. Balance. So that is a message. But also when we started correlating the data, so if you actually mention long hours in the current culture, what solutions are people giving in the desired culture for that? And we found out it wasn't only balance, but it was things like fulfillment, meaning, and recognition. Wow. So if you can come to work with a meaning, level 5, then long hours is kind of a different concept. So we felt that we needed to do something in our values that was around making a difference, that was around you need to come to work, not just for work, but for something bigger. And last but not least, in our vision, in our strategy, there's a lot of, we want to be more agile, we want to be more technology enabled, we want to be more looking at the long-term value and not just at short-term value, so a shift from truly short-term performance KPIs to much more long-term sustainable KPIs. And so we didn't see a lot of that in the top 10, but then after the dialogue with Phil, we said, let's look at the top 20, because sometimes people kind of have other things that you need to solve first, like the long hours, like we want to remain who we are, but there's more seeds for transformation in that top 20. And actually when we started looking at the top 20, all the words were there, all the values were there. So all of that has brought us really fantastic insights. But then, of course, you only have values. And in the end, it's about behaviors. So I'll come back to the process that we then embarked on. One of the things we did is that, and I heard in one of the breakouts yesterday, and this happened to us as well. Of course, when we said, let's co-create with 240,000 people, one of the leaders stands up and says, but what if they are wrong? And then you can think, okay, it's kind of you against 240,000 people. Sorry? What do you think? It has to be, because there's no females on the leadership team anyway. Yeah, there's one. And she actually runs the whole of IT, so she's fantastic. So all my hopes were on her. So we said, okay, let's take the strategy then, and let's take our purpose, our vision 2020, and our 4 strategic choices, and let's look at the constructs that we would need in our values, and let's then align that with the values data and see if that energy is already there. So just an example, to truly manifest our purpose and our strategic choices, we felt we needed more emotional strength, less head energy, and more intuitive energy in our work. So we built a construct on what we call emotional strength after deep dialogues again with the Barrett Value Center, what makes up emotional strength. And we then looked at what are the personal values, what is the current culture, and what is the desired culture. So we were looking for patterns. And we could say to the leadership, if this is our strategy and our purpose, these are the cultural constructs that we need. And now let's look at what our people are saying about that. That yes, they've got the cultural capital. There's something in our system not working because it's not unleashing that energy, it's not bringing out that energy, but they do want it for the future. So we were building also for those curmudgeons, those critical leaders that were saying, but what if they're wrong, you know? We were saying, these people are going to be right because they understand the strategy. And then, of course, one of the leaders would say, but yeah, it's our people. What in the end, we do this for our clients, right? So what do our clients say about us? So we did a massive global research in terms of what our clients are saying about us. And yes, they were recognizing that base case for a professional services firm. If you hire PwC, you get quality, you get expertise, you're getting leading edge advice, and they're confident. But when you then dig a bit deeper, do we truly care? So listening, they found us not easy to work with. We have the tendency as kind of intellectual head people to make simple things really complex. And also they were saying to us, what about the true long-term relationships? You are there when there's a project, but when there's not a project, I can't find you. And of course, and we saw in the previous presentations, this whole thing about arrogance. Of course, if you truly believe that your confidence comes from your intellect, then there's a big tendency that you come across as arrogant. So again, the constructs of what our clients were giving us, we were building it in the co-creative process of where we thought our values needed to land. Then we had like a working set of values. By that time, there were still 8. And we did another co-creative process. We went back into the countries and we did about 127 workshops around the globe. Again, from Asia to Americas, Australia, Africa, Europe. And we geared up a whole group of facilitators who could run these workshops because impossibly the 3 of us could fly around the world doing these workshops. We've done quite a lot because it's here when you start to realize what, for example, balance means. If you ask someone in Colombia what balance means for them, you get a different answer than when you ask someone from the Caribbean islands what balance means for them. So really making sense of the data by, again, a collaborative inquiring process around what that truly meant. And the outputs of these workshops has been so helpful to actually get from values to behaviors. Because we were now understanding if people say quality, what they mean with quality. If they say integrity, integrity does mean something different in this part of the world and in that part of the world, in how you operate, how you do business. But what we shared was, for example, that act with integrity for us means to speak up for what's right even if it feels wrong, to kind of always deliver quality. So there were elements in our behaviors that were collective, don't matter where you come from in the world. And in this whole exercise, the journey that we've been on, and I was telling this story to Phil just a few weeks ago when you were in Amsterdam, and he asked me if I was willing to share this story with you. As these things are always about personal transformation, my personal transformation the last year has been so deep and so tremendous. And of course you attract these upsets to yourself that you can't make sense of when it's happening, but you deeply know you have to learn something from it. So we launched the value survey on the 2nd of January. And then the 5th of January, my dad went to the hospital and he was diagnosed with cancer. And in such a way that it was already all over. So there was no stopping of this process. And it all went amazingly fast. So we basically got another 4 weeks with him. And on the 4th of February, he passed away. And although I was manifesting my purpose because I truly want PwC to become more purpose-led and values-driven. And I know how important values are. And then this thing happened in your life. And I remember those last 4 days, once we realized he was starting chemotherapy, but it turned out to be not going well and actually bringing him downhill instead of uphill. So the doctor looked us in the eyes, my sister and me, and she said, he's not going to get out of the hospital. Sophie said, can you put 2 extra beds in his room? Because we're not leaving either. And those 4 days have delivered to us the most tremendous, deep conversations around values, around a positive attitude, around a can-do mentality, and around acceptance. That was so beautiful. But then there's also this PwC purpose to manifest and a job to be done. So 2 weeks later, I came back to work, and we were about to, after the whole sense-making process of the data, I was asked to fly to Mexico and facilitate a session with the leadership team to talk to them about what our people have told us, what our clients have told us, and actually those that arrive at that set of draft values. And of course, I wanted to go to Mexico, but 2 days before, I panicked because I was in such a bad emotional state. And of course, there was so much crying and there was so much processing of what was happening in the busiest part of your career. And then I phoned the CEO of the Netherlands, and he's become a true friend of mine. He's a great guy. And he said to me, what is the worst thing that can happen? I said, well, I'll be there with the top leadership team. This was the top 30 of leaders around the world. And these people are leading large businesses. China, 15,000 people. The US, 50,000 people. And then you can feel really small. As a female, but also as a Dutchie in the network, with a subject culture. And all of that then kind of hits you. Because I was in such a bad emotional state. So he said, what's the worst thing that can happen to you? I said, well, we go in there and then I break down. And I start crying. And he's like, what's the worst thing that can happen to you? You're talking about emotional strength and bringing the heart back in the business. Go out there, bring the heart back in the business. So I went. And of course, worst case scenario happened. By the time we were talking about emotional strength and how important this was and a positive mindset, and I started crying. And I told my story and I looked up and half of them were crying with me. And they came up to me and they were like, the hug, where are you? The hug barometer. This conference was amazing. I would have never met a conference with our leaders to be so hugging and caring. So this process delivered to us the realization, this massive upset that care is in each one of us. But sometimes we lose it because our head gets in the way. But it's just about unleashing that and making sure and rebuilding that connection. And when I look at all these, they went back and start sharing this story, and I now go, and sometimes I meet people just randomly in a network, oh, you were the one from Mexico, and I kind of go, oh my God. But it's been a massive journey for me as well, emotionally, and in my own transformation, and in my own preconceived ideas about also a lot of male leaders with a lot of head energy, and the friendships that I've built and the care is just really heartwarming. So I look at the clock and I see I need to speed up. So we went out in the network, co-created the behaviors, and then came to a list of values. And I had the slide in there showing the values and the behaviors, but then I realized, and I know you all love Twitter, and although we are all about trust, we are launching this on Monday in our global network. So let me talk about them. And I'm more than happy to share with you next week. But it just doesn't feel like trustworthy to my own colleagues if I'm sharing this externally when we haven't even embarked on the journey internally. So, act with integrity just had to be one of the values. Speaking up for what's right, even if it feels wrong. in deep conversations with our clients is one thing that we truly foster. The next thing, and of course, and this was my favorite, and I've been fighting really hard. Every time it dropped off the list, I kind of sneakily pulled it back in, is make a difference. Make a difference beyond borders, beyond your own line of service, beyond your single client, beyond what you do. So make a difference. And of course, you can guess, care is in there. How we care about each other and how we care about what truly matters when we have conversations with our colleagues, with our clients, but also in terms of the things that we do in society. Work together is one that is truly part of PwC. And last but not least, we felt we had to put a much more stretching value in there, although I realize care is a stretch for us. We came to the conclusion that reimagine the possible is something that would drive that energy, that would create that aspiration and inspiration for the future. So reimagine the possible is the fifth one, and we've landed on 5 values. And each of those accompanied by 3 behaviors. So we end up with a network, comprehensive set of 15 behaviors and 5 values. Now realizing Monday and next week I'm speaking at a lot of big conferences, and there's a big team around the world talking about conferences, how we arrived at the values. And of course people like to intellectually understand how we've arrived at the values. Now the journey starts, because the big work is yet to come. So we are going to give them a guide. We are actually working on a lot of dialogue material that we are going to give the leaders, and we're going to teach the leaders and talk them through it and inspire our leaders to have these conversations on what we call our new narrative. Who we are, what we do, and how we would like to bring about change in the world. So our narrative of our purpose, our Vision 2020, our new values and behaviors. So we're creating these sets for leaders and our coaches. We've created and we've educated a network of coaches around the world who are about to help us in this journey of becoming truly purpose-led and values-driven. And I just hope whenever you encounter PwC in the network, you will see them act with integrity, work together, care, make a difference, and reimagine the possible. Thank you.